Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of The Art of Comic Writing. I'm your host, Jorge Medina. That's George with a J. And I want to thank every single one of you for joining me today. And we're going to talk with another guest. I think you have maybe seen this show a few times. This is, I think it's my 10th episode now on this show. So thank you again for joining. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't done so yet, do that. Subscribe, like, comment, share the video, do all that fun stuff. It's how we grow the channel. This particular show, The Art of Comic Writing, is about writing comics. So if you know someone who maybe is interested in doing something like this, they talk to you about, hey man, I like comics and I wonder what it's like to write, or how do I get into it? How do I start writing comics? Make sure you come to subscribe to this channel, because that's what we talk about here every week. That's what we do. We talk about writing comics. So make sure you do that. Again, thank you guys for watching the shows. I have another very, very, very interesting guest today, and I can't wait to get to it. But before we do that, why don't we thank the sponsor of today's show, and that is our friends at Gig. Do you have the next best-selling comic book idea but have no idea how to get started because you're an artist and not a writer, or vice versa? Then go to globalindiegroup.com and find exactly what you're looking for. Gig has a list of writers, artists, editors, colorists, letterers, even podcasts on the platform to help you bring that comic book to life. Sign up today to get started and make sure you provide the promo code WRITING at checkout for a discount. What are you waiting for? Go to globalindiegroup.com today and get started on the next best-selling comic book you've been wanting to create. You're pretty good at this writing thing, right? Yeah, you are. You have a few scripts under your belt and people like what you do. Not like, they love what you do. They love your stories. They love reading them. And your confidence is at an all-time high. Writing maybe comes easy to you. You knock out scripts in your sleep. This thing's a cinch. Why am I even watching this, you might think? I'll tell you why. Because no matter how good you think you might have gotten at this writing thing, or anything for that matter, there's always room for improvement. And if you disagree, you're in trouble. My friends, you're in trouble. And you're right. Maybe this episode or show isn't for you. For the rest of us who understand that there is always more to learn, sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with my next guest as we discuss how to improve our writing skills. Plus, you know what we do at the end of the show? We give them a writing prompt, which you can also take part in. My next guest is a person I have known for quite some time. I began self-publishing in 2003, and he had already been destroying, never mind hitting the pavement, for at least 10 years. He is the creator of the Oswald Chronicles, among other projects that I'm sure will see the light of day soon. He has a very entertaining podcast on his channel that airs just about every Sunday night called Indie Comics Explained. He's a talented writer and a very good friend in the industry. Please welcome Mr. JD Calderon.
Hey, what's up, George? How you been?
What's up, JD? What's going on, my brother?
Everything's good, man. Just trying to hold it together.
That's all we could do, bro. Hold it together.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So for those who have watched the show now for the last couple of months, you know how we do here. I'm going to ask JD some questions. We have a little main question at the end that we're going to talk about. Then before we leave, I'm going to leave JD with a writing prompt that he has no idea what it is just yet. So we'll do that at the very end. But, oh man, this is it, man. We are here. It is the art of comic writing. I'm going to ask you these questions, JD. Anything you want to say to the public before we start?
There's no art to writing. It's a fool's game. No, I'm only joking.
Damn. Here I am doing this podcast for all the writers out there, because the artists get all the clout, right? You see shows for artists all the time. So I figured, let me do a little here. You're like, don't do it. This is crazy.
Don't.
This is crazy.
It's just a path to madness. That's all it is.
All right, listen. Speaking of paths to madness, you have been working on a book for a very long time, the Oswald Chronicles. Guys, check out oswaldchronicles.com. Sign up for the mailing list. And so I know that you've been married to this character. You've done a lot with this character. I know it started out as, you tell the story all the time. You and Daphne, your wife, you guys were walking down in New York City, and then you said,
Mhm.
man, you had an idea for a
Right.
character. So my first question is, and in this case, I guess the character came first, but in general, what comes
Mhm.
first for you, the plot or the characters, and why?
Right. That's an interesting question. I think typically it is the characters for me,
It is.
because the thing is that in the case of Oswald, right? Um, it's weird because I had the character Oswald, but he wasn't supposed to be the lead character. He wasn't supposed to be the main character. He was supposed to be, like a crypt keeper character. He was supposed to be the character telling the tales of others, right? But
Is that why you had the title Oswald Chronicles? Because he was going to be
yes,
telling the stories? Okay.
right, because he was supposed to be chronicling other stories.
Gotcha.
In the end,
Gotcha.
he's chronicling his own story. And
Right.
then, he
Right.
just ended up he just stepped up and said, nah, it's all about me now.
But when did it happen? When did he step up? When did that change? When did like the whole thing just change?
It was literally the second story. So, but yeah, so in this particular case, it was character who was supposed to tell story.
Right. Right.
Right? Because it was supposed to be very plot driven.
Yeah.
And if you look at a lot of the stories that I've written with him, especially in the beginning, he's telling other people's stories. Whenever he encounters someone, it's like, all right, let's stop whatever we're doing, right? We're going to get into a fight, but before we fight, I want to hear about your life story before I punch you in the mouth. So, so
it's interesting, man. It's interesting that it started out with just, hey, I'm just gonna be, random character, and then he just became that focal point. But how do you develop that character? Like, what do you write, like a Bible that nobody's ever going to see, or are you more of the type that just kind of like you just your fingers do the talking, and then that's what you get? Or
I'm literally like, I ask sometimes the question, pantser or plotter, right? So in that particular case, I'm a pantser. I'm just writing at the seat of my pants. I'm just like going for it. I'm just going for it.
Yeah.
I am, you hear a lot of you hear just about everyone tell you, create your character sheet, like you're doing a role playing game, right? Size, weight, hair, dimensions, all that stuff, all that good stuff, where they go into school, all that good stuff. And look, and I agree 110% with all of that stuff. I utilize none of it. Okay, I don't have a character sheet for any characters.
No.
I go by the seat of my pants, man. I'm creating stuff on the fly. You
are.
When I'm creating like different races and worlds and all that stuff and names, I'm working at just off the seat of my pants, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's just like you're just like in that moment, you just like really moving.
Do you ever come back to it though and say, oh, okay, wait a minute, I got to change that?
Oh,
that
of
makes
course.
Sense. You do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, because here's the thing, I tend to write long form, right? Which means, when I write long form. I write by hand, right? Yeah. So then, when I go to and then I transcribe it, so I got to type it. I got to type it into the computer, right? So I'm like, so that adds an extra level of editing, to that story. So it gives me an extra chance to think about it, and then I take it. I'll usually print it out, and then I'll take that and I'll set it to the side. I've set stories to the side for like 6 months before I got back to it. And then I'll come back and I'll reread it and I'll do a good edit on it.
Yeah.
And and that's where all that stuff gets rethought. Then once it's printed, it's just like, okay, well, I'm committed to that. So
have you ever looked at like your printed stories and say, "Ooh, I can't do that on here because it would be a huge plot hole if I did that now."
Oh yeah,
I got to keep it consistent. Yeah.
Yes, that has definitely happened there. Yeah, but you got to keep track of that stuff. It's just
you do. Yeah, no, absolutely, man, absolutely.
And at times I'm cussing myself. I'm like,
Now, is there a particular character in any of your books? I mean, I know you've written, obviously there's the Oswald Chronicles, but I'm sure you've written other things. Are there any particular characters in your books? Well, is there a particular character in your book that you relate to the most, and why?
I see. The thing is, I relate to all of them.
You do,
right? Like I do relate to all of them, and it's like saying which one I relate to the most. I mean, yeah, I guess I could say Oswald, right? I could say Ravenwood from Tall Tales. Probably there's a character called Shaka Raju, right? From Dreamweavers. right? That I relate to. There's a character whose name I'm forgetting from a novel that I wrote called The Stone Egg, and it was the lead. So yeah, so it just depends, but I tend to relate to just about every character that I write. I mean, listen, you know how they say, like, you know, even the bad ones, you know, you got to get into that head space, and they say, you know, you have these goofy people. They say, oh, you wrote about this bad person, so that means you must be bad. I'm like, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm bad. It just means that, you know, I have the capacity to actually try to understand other things other than me.
Right.
You know, you have to live in other heads. You have to live in other worlds. You have to live in other minds.
Yeah.
Right. And not all of those minds are good places.
No, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
You know, and you know, if you're gonna have a protagonist, you have to have an antagonist. If you don't have an antagonist, that's a true antagonist, right? Because we have, you know, I mean, look, I mean, we go through our day-to-day lives, right? You know, my antagonist could be my postman. Right? The son of a bitch folds my damn mail. You know, I get that Kickstarter and that box. He's trying to fold it and to get it into that box. That's my antagonist. Right. Right. For my story. Right.
Yeah.
Guy could be a completely rational, nice guy.
Right.
Right. But in his mind, if it doesn't fit in that box, he can't deliver it. And damn the world if he's not going to deliver that package.
Well, that's a good example of antagonism, because you both want the same thing. You both want the mail to get to you. You want the mail to get to you. He wants the mail to get to you. It's how it gets to you where you guys clash. And the best antagonist to a protagonist is the person that wants the same thing, and you guys are going to fight to get it, right? And so that's exactly right, man. But you're right. I mean, you have to be able to write different characters, and I mean, listen, it's make believe, right? I mean, it's and a lot of it comes from the research you do. You know, I'm sure you do research when you're writing your stories, so it comes from that. Things you've read, things you've seen. You're like, oh, that would be interesting. That would be nice. What is it about them? Like, what is it about Oswald, say, for example, that you relate to them? Like, why do you relate to him? What is it about? I mean, there are pieces of you, but what is it?
Right. I think it's the smart ass in me. It's the I know, and I know you know, and I know you don't want me to know, but I know.
Okay.
But I know. Okay? So go do what I tell you to do, because I know, and I know you know. Despite the fact you don't want me to know, go do it. Thank you.
Right. And that's Oswald. There's Oswald in there. Okay.
Yeah, there's Oswald in there.
No, JD, I know you've been in this industry. You've been doing this for a long time, dude. And I know you've worked with different people, with different, you know, creators, writers, artists, whatever. What is the most valuable piece of advice you've been given about writing in your time since you've been doing this?
Okay. I got a friend of mine. His name is Steve Roman, right? I consider him, he's like my brother from another mother, right? He's the guy that took me underneath his wing. Even though I was a bitter, mean, arrogant asshole. Okay? I was a young writer. He was sagacious enough to say, I know this type of idiot. He's a good guy.
Jesus.
I'm gonna ignore this, and I'm gonna still do what I can to help him, and he did, to his credit. And I love this man for it. And one of the things he told me, because like I said, I was very combative. Right? This guy he was editing my stuff, and I was very combative. And he said, "Listen, go read Stephen King's book on writing." He was like, he was like, look, he says, I'm not getting it through to you. He says, maybe Stephen King. So I read the book. The book. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to read the damn book. I read the book. Very excellent book. And in that book, the key piece of information that Stephen King said, and I've quoted this many times, is that first draft is yours. Okay? Do whatever you want in that first draft. Okay, so that means do whatever. You want to have him dancing on the surface of the sun? Do it. Whatever you want. Do anything.
Yeah.
You know, you want to have them scooping up oceans and chucking it across and doing all kinds of insane stuff. Do it.
Right.
Get it out of your system.
Right.
But understand when you edit it, a lot of that's going to come out.
Right.
Okay, that's when you hear the words, you know, you have to murder your darlings, right?
Yeah.
You have to kill your kids, all that stuff. You know, you hear all those words, right?
Right.
So, and that's also where I say the art is in the edit. You know, so that's the one that for me was a very crucial piece of information. Is like, get that stuff, write it down, because you never know. You might not use it in this story.
Right.
You may use it eventually in another story. You know. But get it out of your system because it's in there. It's in there for a reason. Your psyche has it built up in you, so you want to you got to flush that out. Get it out of you, put it down, but be prepared to do the tough part, and that's to do that edit and just pull those things out.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of people get married to that first draft, right? Or they think that that's it. I'm done writing. I finished my script, and I'm gonna send it off to the artist, and he's gonna, I have a hit in my hands, like. You're not Faulkner. You're not Faulkner. It's not going to happen that way. You know what I mean?
You're not Amadeus.
All right, JD. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. What do you think is the best way to improve your writing skills? Obviously, besides writing and besides practicing.
Right.
What do you think are some of the best practices for like getting better at this thing, man? Like, how do you sharpen your skills?
Okay. We already said right. Everyone's going to tell you the same thing. Right. But aside from that is try not to fill your brain with too much junk. And what I mean is try to read the best work by the best authors. Okay? Because I will never tell you, like, I'm not trying to be better than Alan Moore. Okay? I'm not trying to be better than Neil Gaiman. I'm not trying to be better than Warren Ellis. But I'm going to push myself to try to be on that level. Whether or not I attain that, who knows? That's not for me to judge. That's not for me to decide, right? But I'm going to continuously push myself to that level. But the only way you can really do that, you can ever get that gauge, is by trying to read the best stuff. I was very lucky so that when I was growing up, one of the first really good writers I encountered was Frank Miller. So it was his Daredevil run. Right? So like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that area. I pick up Daredevil, I think it's 168, the first appearance of Elektra, right? And I'm like reading it, and I'm like, and that wasn't my first comic that I ever read, but it was the first comic I ever read that I said, wow, if I ever write comics, I want it to be like this.
That was before you even wrote anything.
No, I started writing when I was like 8.
Oh, okay.
Right? But I was like writing other, like, I think I was writing comics, but I think I was writing more like storybooks type stuff.
Gotcha.
You know, like picture books type stuff.
Gotcha, yeah.
You know, but I was like, this is what I want.
That's what you
to write like, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just like this level of thing, you know? And it's funny because it's hilarious because like Daredevil, I've read Frank Miller's run several times. Love it. I don't really like the character Daredevil. Like I don't know. He's like one of these characters I find really blasé. But
really?
But yeah. I like it because it's Frank Miller's work on it. I don't know. There's something very weird about it.
I got
you. You know. I mean that not that there's anything inherently wrong with the character. It is, you know, it's a cool character, but it's just
not
the street level hero is never a big fan of.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the book for you that did it. That you were like,
but to continue on that is also at that young age, I discovered the science fiction book club. Okay, now back in the day, way back in the day, they had these ads, and you could send. I think it was you could get 10 books for $1. Okay, and they would be you would get them in the TV guide. That's how old it was.
The TV guide, baby.
Right. So in the TV guide, they would advertise this science fiction book club. That was one of the places. There were other places too.
Yeah.
And for $1, you could get 10 books, and then they would subscribe you every month. They would send you 2 books, and I think the books are like $4 each or something like that, right? And you know, I managed to bamboozle my parents into getting this for me. And I mean, I did it, and my other friend Marcos had done it as well. And we made it a point to get like not the same books.
Okay.
Right. So we would read and then swap them out. We would trade with each other. Then you say, "Oh, read this one, read this one, read this one."
That's cool.
So at a very young age, I was introduced to Roger Zelazny, Frank Herbert, Harlan Ellison, Michael Moorcock, Fritz Lieber. Just tons and tons. Isaac Asimov. Just tons of writers, like excellent fantasy and science fiction. And that in my brain, it was always a thing. Like, I have to try to achieve what these guys are doing, and I'm like a 14-year-old kid, and I'm trying to compare myself to a 60-year-old man.
Right.
It's and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I honestly didn't think you could be a writer until you were like in your 40s.
Right.
I mean, I was writing, but I was just like, I'm never really going to achieve anything,
right? Yeah.
Great until like I'm much later in life, because that's all those writers were older. Right. I mean, they were like, like my age now,
men, they were like older, grown ass men, who had been through some stuff. What have you really been through at that point, right? Now, let me ask you a question, JD. When you talk about reading the best stuff and just tapping into that, how do you keep from copying some of that stuff? How do you keep from some of that stuff kind of seeping into your brain, and then you start putting it down on paper and like, oh, damn, that's been done.
No matter what you do, it's going to seep in. Okay?
Right.
But what I would always suggest is try to read a lot and try to read varied. Okay? So if you're going to read a science fiction novel today, try to read, and you finish it, try to read horror. Try to read contemporary fiction.
Gotcha.
Read a romance. Go read a cowboy, cowboy and Indians book. Go read, something different.
Mix it up.
You understand? Just straight history. It doesn't matter. Go read something different. Okay? Because then that way it all congeals in your brain. It comes out, the soup will come out a little different because you're adding all these different flavors to it.
Yeah, man, because that's the fear sometimes. It's like, damn, I don't want to end up copying. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, copying is, because no matter what you look, they've already told you, right? Like, we already know this is, no idea is new, right? Good versus evil, right? It's an old concept. The I don't know, the love triangle, right?
Right. Yeah.
Old concept, right? I mean, and then the different ways to utilize it, right? The Japanese, it's a boy, two girls. Chinese, two boys, one girl. Right. That's a cultural difference that if you ever watched like enough cinema from both sides, or enough anime or manga, but it's usually in the cinema, that you'll see those distinctions in their cultures, which I find fascinating. That's another thing.
So wait, so the love triangle in one is usually two girls, one boy, and another is usually two boys, one girl.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you see a Chinese cinema, it's usually two boys, one girl, right? And in Japanese, it's two girls, one boy. So it's two girls chasing down one boy, and it's two boys chasing down one girl.
Man. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, wow. I mean, and I would tell everyone that's another thing. Try to find fiction from other countries. I found a lot of it in cinema.
Yeah.
Watching a lot of Asian cinema. I've watched stuff from, obviously Japan and China, Bangkok, Thailand, the Philippines. Korea has some great horror. Like, but like just like bone chilling like stuff.
Yeah. It's different.
But all those countries have something. Like the Philippines, all those countries have something to give. There's a lot of good stuff that's come out of Germany. But you got to look for this stuff. You can't be passive. It's not just gonna find you.
Yeah, for sure. No, but that's good advice, man. Read, but read the best. Now, would you ever say, hey, and also read like one crappy book so that you can tell the difference? Or if it's good, you'll know.
Right. If it's bad, you should know. Right. Right. You should know. I mean, there are lists out there. I used to go by the old Hugo Awards. I mean, there are whole bunches of lists like what's good, what's not good, and you can't always go by those things because I've gotten lists, and I remember I got one book from someone that like Hugo, Nebula, all these different awards, and my God, it was the most boring piece of thing. Oh, it's just so boring. It's just like my goodness, it's just boring, but it happens, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to do your research. You know, you have to do your research. But they're out there. You know, there are plenty of great writers out there, plenty of great authors, and there's plenty of great runs in comics.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, look, I mean, we're indie guys, but I mean, we grew up with Marvel and DC, so there's like the easiest fallback for it.
Yeah.
Right. You got Swamp Thing, or Alan Moore Swamp Thing, Daredevil, Frank Miller, Walter Simonson's Thor. Chris Claremont, John Byrne on the X-Men.
Yeah.
Right. What is it? Watchmen, Miracle Man.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I mean,
the Sandman, obviously. You know.
Right. Sandman, exactly. Yep, I mean, you want to go a little indie, you look at Mike Mignola's Hellboy, BPRD, which I think is actually a better read than his Hellboy.
Yeah.
The Oni, I think, is putting out the Sixth Gun again by Cullen Bunn.
Oh, really?
That was like one of his original things that he's done. That's actually a very good series. There's a really, really good series.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's just tons of stuff, man. And it's easy to like. There's so much of it, you know. But you got to seek it out. You know, there's just tons of it. There's Moon Shadows by J.M. DeMatteis. You know, that's one if you've never seen it. I think it's painted by John J. Muth.
Okay.
But that's an incredible story. That I think they have it printed up in one volume. It's one book.
You talk about the book that made you say, "Wow, that's what that was amazing." For me, it was The Killing Joke. Like when I first read The Killing Joke by Alan Moore, way back in the day, when I saw what he did with the Joker and how he developed that character, I was like, dude, you can do this in comics? Like that was just phenomenal for me. You know what I mean? Like I love that. And you're right. I think, and not only does it make you think a better writer, but it inspires you to write.
Right.
When you read things like that, it really inspires you to sit down and just start writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I
mean, because here's the thing: you got to challenge yourself, right? You got to challenge yourself at all times, at all points, and you have to sit there and be like, all right, like here's the thing: if I handed one of my stories off to Neil Gaiman, right? I don't want to sit there and be like, did I hand him a good story?
Right.
No, I want to be able to be like, no, I handed him a good story. Period.
Right.
That's it. I don't want to be like, second guessing myself. Like, did I suck that day? No. Like, it's like, no, I did the absolute best I could. Right. And that's it. And I said, I did a good job, and that's it. And hopefully he agrees.
Yeah. Right. Right. Hopefully he does agree, right? He's like, oh man, great.
Yeah, says, you suck, buddy.
What are you doing? Man. Yeah, not for sure, brother. No, but that's good advice, man. That's good advice. That's excellent stuff. I have one final question for you, JD.
Go for it.
Last one is let me just get this one down here. I gotta find it. I think I lost it in all my notes. It's such an important question. What's your favorite YouTube channel, and why is it Get Your Meds?
Because Jorge Medina is there. That's why.
All right, look at you.
That's it, bro. Like
man,
that's it.
There you go, my brother. There you go.
Jorge Medina is there.
Well, listen. The final thing we got to do tonight is a little writing prompt.
Okay,
a little writing prompt. Now, we're writers. We like to get inspired by different things. Your writing prompt is going to be the following. And now, for those watching, if you guys want to play along, you can use this prompt. If you, JD, or if anybody watching, if you feel like, oh, that's kind of cool, man, and you want to share it with me, email it to me, and I'll post it on my website. Okay. All right, your writing prompt is a hammer on an empty city sidewalk.
A hammer on an empty city sidewalk.
Yeah, you're walking around. There's a hammer laying down on an empty city sidewalk. How do you get there? Why is it there? Who does it belong to? Writing prompt. Right? I mean, I'm not saying write a whole novel. Sit down 15 minutes. A little short story, whatever, a scene. I don't give a crap. You know what I mean?
Let me write that down.
All right. So it's a hammer on an empty city sidewalk. If you're on the train and it prompts you to think about something to that effect, yeah, write it down and send it on over.
Now, you know what's funny is that you're gonna give me this, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I could bang out something real quick, and it'll be like 400 pages later. It's like, here you go, boy.
Yeah, you went through something like that. Anyway,
there you go.
JD, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. You
Anytime.
know, for any updates, go into the show notes. You'll see anything that JD's doing. So
Okay,
yeah, so thank you, JD, so much for coming on, my brother, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, George. It was awesome as always. You know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, my brother. And that, ladies and germs, that was JD Calderon. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about some of his suggestions? Have you watched international films or maybe read international works to help you improve or maybe expand the way you tell stories? What are some of the things that you've used to improve your writing skills? Have you learned anything from what we talked about today? And what were some of the things that you took from it? Write them down in the show notes. Let me know. Let me know what you thought of the show. Let me know how I can maybe even improve the show. Things like that. But thank you so much, Mr. Calderon, for coming on. Make sure you check out his show every Sunday night or most Sunday nights. Also, it'll be in our show notes as well. And if you want to get down with the writing prompt, remember, a hammer on an empty sidewalk is the prompt. So check that out. And next week on the show, I'm going to have Mr. Sebastian Bonet. Sebastian Bonet will be on the show. We'll be talking to him. That's going to be a good show, a fun show. So make sure you tune in for that. Again, I'm going to remind you guys, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, throw some comments down there, share this video, share it out, and I will be back here again next week to do it all over again with you. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for supporting. And don't forget to go to getyourmeds.com to get some merch like this Believe Nothing t-shirt from my comic, Russ 5377. Do that. All right. That's all I got for today, guys. Don't forget, keep writing. Peace.